So I'm going to be starting the drive belt replacement here on this John Deere 325, and I just have it hooked up to my chain fall here. I have a nice I-beam going across my shop on a nice little roller, and to protect yourselves, because on a chain fall you pull this way to go up and you pull that way to go down. So what I've done here is I've just taken a bolt with a couple nuts, and then you put washers, you center the bolt up best you can, and basically if this thing ever lets go, it will only go to that point and it will not drop down on me. So I got a little better light here, and I got a little stool, and we can now come and have just a better look at the drive belt, and you guys can see it is 100% in need of replacement here. But swapping out this drive belt is pretty straightforward. So basically once I get my pulley off here, and we're going to take the belt from over top of that little cross member there. We have a belt keeper right there, and that bolts up right to the frame. You guys can see it there. So that little rod drops down and it bends up and around. So we are in fact going to have to bend that out. So I'm going to just take a pair of pliers and bend that out, and then I'll be able to slip the old belt out of that without actually having to remove that. As for the keeper on the left here, that one I should just be able to slide the belt out, and then I'll just wipe all that grease and grass down just so that it doesn't get on the new belt when I do go to put that in. And then as for the very rear belt, it doesn't look like there's any keepers on that either, so I should just be able to push the belt out. And that keeper there, you don't have to bend it out too much. You literally just have to bend it out just enough to the point where you can slip your old belt out and your new belt in. And I was just using a pair of channel lock pliers to do that. And just like I figured, because the belt has all that slack on it, I'm just able to reach up there and push it off of the rear transmission pulley. So the only thing is, our idler pulley here, that's the one that the big spring hooks onto. You guys saw me remove that in the how to remove the engine video. And just like that, the drive belt is out. So I'm going to go and get my new belt that I have. We are going to be installing a Kevlar belt because they last a little bit longer. And like I said, I'm just going to go around to the spots that I think might have a little bit of grease that might come in contact with the belt, such as the side of that little keeper there on the pulley. And then I'll just wipe them down, and we'll go ahead and get ready to route the new belt. So just have a little closer inspection of the old belt. You guys can see desperate need of a replacement. So I'm going to be replacing that with the Kevlar drive belt. So it's a 5/8 by 85 inch. And the Stens number is a 258-085, and we can see there's your John Deere number. That's an M118048. But again, guys, that's going to be a 5/8 by 85 inch belt, and we can see that this is a much sturdier belt. It is Kevlar, so it's going to last a lot longer than a measly old rubber composite belt, whatever they have there. Now the only thing you're going to want to keep in mind here, guys, is there is going to be an outside that's going to be thicker than the inside diameter. So this is a V-belt. Even though it doesn't look like that much of a V-belt, there is going to be a slight taper. So you're just going to want to make sure that you don't have your belt inside out, and it should be pretty straightforward. And like I said, guys, before, I'm going to route my new belt through the same way that we took it off, so over that cross member. I've just gone ahead and I've wiped down that cross member there, and then I've come back to our pulley and I've just wiped down that keeper. I've wiped down this keeper here just so that there's not all kinds of gunk all over it, and I'm right ready to start routing my new belt through. So the first thing I'm doing is coming over our cross member, and the second thing I'm doing is on this side, I'm just going to tuck my belt and start routing it through the keeper and the idler, because we have to remember that we're going to go on the outside of this one, and then we're going on the inside of that second one right there. And we are going to be going in between the rear pulley and that bracket right there. So I'm going to pull the light up so you guys can see there's this little upright bracket. You want to go through your keeper, and then you're going to go in between that pulley and that bracket. So I'm just going to keep pushing my belt all the way back, and I'll bring you back when I have it routed even more. So there we have it, guys. We're pretty much all lined up now, and I have the belt over the cross member on the outside of this pulley here, on the inside of that pulley here, in between that little upright and that pulley there. And then down at the back, you guys can see I've rotated it around my transmission pulley. I'm just going to go ahead and bend up this little keeper here so that it doesn't ever come out again. And then I can kind of lower this thing down and get ready to put my engine back into place. Now, just so you guys are aware, on this particular machine, you guys can see that someone has snapped off the fan. So what's happened is probably, I'm guessing, the person who changed this belt before went in there and they snapped the fins off, or it just broke over time. But that fan blade is supposed to cool your transmission, and without it, your transmission may run a little hot. So I just want to get that on record so that you guys know that if you're doing a belt, you're going to have to wrap it around your fan blade and then drop it onto the pulley and then cinch it back tight this way. But like I said, I just wanted to get that on record so that you guys and my customer know that, yeah, that was like that before I got to it. Now, I should note here that if you guys are watching this, I have my engine out, clearly. There's no engine in it. So if you didn't catch the video series on this, I did a sump gasket, I did a crankshaft main seal replacement, I did an oil filter, head gasket, we shimmed the valves, and I did a brand new overhead valve gasket. So this thing's completely sealed up. It also has a new air filter, new pre-filter, and new spark plug. So this thing is ready to go. So just a quick recap, it leaked oil all over the place, as you guys can see from up underneath this. Now, I was going to pressure wash this thing, but I didn't feel like kind of washing it in here in my garage, and I didn't want to lay down and wash it. Interestingly enough, though, I did pick up one of these guys for my pressure washer. So essentially that pops in where your fitting would go, and then you pop in whatever nozzle you want to use. So you could use like a really wide fan spray, and you can go up underneath a machine and kind of power wash underneath them, so you don't have to lift them up. So I might take this guy and blast underneath there just to clean up all the nasty bits under there. But that is a possibility. These things are made for cleaning your gutters, your eaves trough. So you pop it onto your pressure washer and then you go from up above, right? So that you don't have to kind of get up on your roof. You can just do it from the ground. They make a mess. Crap goes everywhere. But you could use it the opposite way. Use it like I do, upside down, and you can wash the underside of a mower. These things, I think they run like 15 or 20 bucks, and it's well worth it just to have a nice little tool for your shop. So I'm just beginning to lower the mower back down so that I can get ready to drop the engine in. And I'm going to put the back left bolt here and the front right bolt here. My belt right here is kind of routed to the point where I can just drop the engine in and it'll go through that belt. So I might hook something up just to hold it there. Then I'll be able to hook up the drive belt and then slide it forward, bolt it in, and then I can go ahead and hook up the pulley with the idler spring as well. And again, because I'm doing a drive belt replacement with the engine out, if you guys don't have your engine out, then you can click the top right of your screen to watch the video on how to remove the engine, and you'll see me remove not only the idler pulley but also the tensioner spring for the drive, and that will give you enough slack to go ahead and change your belt without having to remove your engine. Okay, so I'm ready to drop the engine back in, so I'm just gonna lift it over, drop it right in. So I just got the engine back in there, and it's starting to come together, guys. So I've gone ahead and lowered the machine here so that I can start to put my exhaust bolts in. So I have the 13 mil up at the front here in, and then I've just gone inside there and threaded the nuts on, and everything is just loose right now. Okay, so I'm just popping my engine bolts in now. You guys can see that I have that one right there in, and come up to here. I got that one installed there, and then I'm just putting this one in. That's the long one with the nut, and that's where all the ground cables go to. And you notice that it's a little blue, and that's because I am using Permatex thread locker on there, and it's the blue thread locker. Shout out to Permatex for sending that our way. And all that's going to do, guys, is just prevent the vibration from your engine from backing those bolts out. And I've also taken a little bit of Permatex nickel anti-seize to the shaft, just so that when I do go ahead and put the pulley right here on and the PTO, that if it ever has to come off again, then the next person that works on this will just be able to slide it off, no issues. So now that I have my bolts tightened up, I'm just going around and I'm hooking up my ground cables here. I have my oil pressure sensor hooked up, and I also hooked up the solenoid for the carburetor. Battery negative is also hooked up, and I just ran it kind of in the fuel line but away from the engine, so I've got it coming back like this so that it stays away from the heat of the engine, and it also will stay away from the hood. So I'm just going to probably fit it up like that, and then I'll tighten it up like that so that when I close the hood, you know, it won't be hitting any of the wires. And I'm just about to put the pulley on, but we can see there is a slight little edge on there where the metal has folded over. So I'm just going to go and clean that edge up with a file so that I can go ahead and slide this pulley on, and you're going to have your large spacer bit towards the engine. There we go. That's a little better. So I just wanted to clean up that little burr, that's all. So now with a couple taps of the rubber mallet here, I should be able to slide that guy right up there. Perfect. So it now looks a little something like this. Like I said, guys, starting to come together nicely. Now I've taken quite a bit of nickel anti-seize to not only the bottom of that pulley, because that could come in contact with the top of the PTO clutch, but I've also put more around the crankshaft there. That's just to prevent things from seizing up, guys, so it is going to help. Now I still have to get my fourth engine bolt in. I'm going to do that next and put a little bit of blue thread locker on it. So the point that I'm at now is I'm going to be doing the idler pulley on that bolt next. So I was just ready to put the pulley here back on, and I'm just trying to see how well it spins, and it doesn't spin at all, guys. So my customer said that he heard like a grinding noise. Now that centerpiece is just not turning, so I'm going to try to find a replacement pulley. These spacers are still good, but then I'll be able to get a pulley with a new bearing in there. I got my new pulley, just came in. This is the official John Deere number, and the Stens number is a 280-309, so that's a direct replacement. Now I've also done a video, guys, on how to shim your PTO, so that's how to make the adjustments. If you want to check that out, you can click in the top right of your screen to check that video out. So this one here, guys, as you can see, spins unlike the other one. So I'm going to be installing this now. And just before I go ahead to install this, we have to remember that this little spacer right here, guys, that's going to go on the bottom. Then it's going to go pulley, and then your little bushing here is going to go on the top with this little groove in it, and that's basically your relief for your carriage bolt. So I've just taken some bearing grease and put that in there so that everything slides nicely when I put all that together, so that nothing binds up. Okay, so I'm putting my new pulley on, and once again I'm just using a little bit of blue thread locker on those threads just to help keep things from vibrating loose. So I'm just going to align my little belt keeper here. So now basically I'm just checking to make sure that my carriage bolt is all the way down. And then I have the idler pulley now installed, the nut tightened down, and I've also just kind of aligned the belt keeper so that it doesn't rub up against the belt, and then I'm just making sure that it spins freely, which it does because it's a brand new idler pulley. So now I'm ready to install my tensioner spring from the idler pulley at the back there to the cross member in the middle. So coming from here, you're gonna hoop your little hook around that way, and you could go the other way, but at least this way, if gravity's always pulling it down, it's always gonna have that top edge to hang on, and you're just gonna pull it until you get to your cross member. Try to center it up as best you can so that looks good, and then you're gonna go and just feel your belt, and like, man, there's perfect tension on that thing. So all I have to do now is hook up my PTO, bolt it in, and then plug it into the loom here, and we're good to go. And if I look at the bolt, I can see the remnants of a little bit of blue thread locker. So I'm going to be putting some fresh blue thread locker onto this bolt before we go ahead and install our PTO. And just before I go ahead and bolt this PTO up, you're going to want to look for a stud. So we have it right there. It's right behind the engine pulley in this case, but your machine will probably have a stud somewhere, and that's just to hold the PTO clutch itself in place so that when you start your engine, the clutch isn't spinning with the machine. Because we have to remember that we don't want this part spinning with the engine, we only want the center bit spinning with the engine, and then that's what transfers your force down to your mower deck. So I'm assuming it's going to go right in here because this is the one that it's been wearing on, but guessing because this is the same length, it's a triangle, you can put that little stud into any of the holes there and it should be good to go. And one final thing, lots of Permatex nickel anti-seize. Again, guys, shout out to Permatex. You should seriously consider using their products. They sent us a huge box of all kinds of different products that I use basically in every one of my videos, and they were kind enough to support the channel, so you guys should definitely support them if you're looking at using some of their products. Like I said, I use thread locker, nickel anti-seize, all kinds of products by Permatex, so again, shout out to them. So once you get your PTO kind of fitted up, you can just start to thread the bolt in just to hold the weight of the PTO, and then you're going to have to figure out where you want to route your cable, obviously away from moving parts like the belt. Our hookup is over here on what is the right side of the machine. Under here it's the left. So I want the cable to run out this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate the PTO until I get it to the point where the stud is going through the relief and my cable is routing out here, and then I can go ahead and tighten up my bolt. Now I went ahead and hooked the PTO up to another hole instead of using the one that had that gouge out of it, because that will allow the PTO to rock in there a little more. So I've went with that one because it doesn't allow the PTO to move as much. So you guys can see there's ever so slightly a little bit of play there. That's fine. And then my cable now, instead of coming out on the left side, comes out slightly on this side. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and replace that little pin wire that was holding the cable up into the frame rail there. And then the cable shouldn't be hanging like it is now. And then I'll go ahead and torque up that bolt, and this job is done, guys. So there we have it, guys. This is essentially all done. I've taken just a zip tie here and ran it through the frame loose enough to the point where it's not going to pinch that cable, but you'll notice that I've ran it in front of the actual connector. So this is quite visible. You'll be able to go in here if this PTO ever needs to be removed again for whatever reason. You'll just snip that. He'll be able to pull out his connector, unplug it, unbolt the PTO, drop it right down. With all the nickel anti-seize that I've put on that PTO clutch, it should never seize up, so they shouldn't have to worry about having to take an air hammer to the bolt like I did. And again, the bonus of the labeling thing, so JD 325. I've labeled everything. The only thing I have left now is an empty parts tray, my old idler pulley there that I can show my customer, and a bag that's labeled hood. So there's my hood pins, and the hood will be the last thing I do. So I'm going to take this thing outside, fire it up, let her idle for a little bit, circulate that new oil, and then I can go ahead and put the hood back on. So we're going to fire this thing up. Works great. So here we have it, guys. Running under its own power, not leaking any oil. This thing's good to go. Quite happy with how it turned out, and I got quite a few videos out of it. And thankfully this thing runs mint, because I didn't want to have to do any carburetor work. So my customer should be very pleased with how this turned out, guys. Then getting the hood on here, we're just going to take these little bushings. And these little bushings there, they just fit in like that, guys. So now I got both my hood pins reinstalled. I plugged in the headlight wire. And just so you guys know, I did go and use Moretz on those wires. So that can go back in there, and that just takes care of that electrical issue. And here's your finished product. So complete engine overhaul for all the gaskets, new drive belt, everything's done. I'm quite happy with how this thing turned out. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, think about leaving me a thumbs up. You know, it really helps me out. We just passed 6,500 subscribers, so shout out to all you new subscribers and the old ones too. At 10,000 subscribers, I think I'm going to do a big Amazon gift card giveaway, so make sure you stay tuned for that. You can click here to subscribe and click over here to watch one of my previous videos. I upload every single week, so be sure you come on back next week, check the channel out for new content. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.